Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode, live stream from Elvis the Ultimate Fan channel. I can see Leslie, Arkansas Dave, Ludane, Rob Jones, Danny. Hi, Danny. Yeah, all the usual suspects. So first off, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. This evening, I'm going to be joined by a special guest by the name of Lee Wood. Now, this was prompted by the release of the 3 CD box set, His Hand in Mine. And Lee is a preacher, and he's going to discuss God and Elvis, his faith and gospel performances. So we'll be talking to Lee in a few minutes. Another couple of things I just wanted to say is we have obviously the final round this week of the Elvis Fan of the Month quiz. Is Lou Dane going to just sweep the board again like she did last week and win? There's a prize obviously at the end of every month. And also I've introduced something new this week as well, which is going to be the Elvis Song of the Week. Now, this is prompted again by me. Just a few people were saying, what was my favorite song? Have you got a favorite song, Steve? Elvis song? And I could always say no, because it changes so much. One week I might like a particular song, Kentucky Rain, for instance, and then the following week it might be Suspicious Minds, Long Black Limousine, something like that. So what I've done, I had the idea to just run it past you that I'm going to do a song of the week every week. That'll be coming at the end of the show, where I'm going to pick the song that's the Elvis song that keeps running through my head this week, and one that I would like you to check out and see what you think of it. When I mention the song, you can sort of give me a bit of feedback. Yeah, I love that song. And I'm going to try and pick sort of more obscure ones that don't get much attention. In other words, I'm not going to say, well, Suspicious Minds, because everybody knows Suspicious Minds. I could go Long Black Limousine, something like that, because that's one of the more obscure ones. Who have we got on here? Hi, Mark. Lou says she likes that idea. Okay, right. So I've got one. I've got one lined up. It's been running through my head for a couple of days, and I've been listening to it as well. And I'll also, if there's different versions of a particular song I like, what I will do is I will recommend the actual version that I think you should maybe listen to. Any day now, Dave. Yeah, that's going to be one probably. That's going to sneak in under the wire one week, I would imagine. Hiya, David. David's checking in. Right, so as I said, my special guest, I'm going to put my headphones on so I can hear what he's got to say, because I'm very interested in what he's got to say. He's going to be talking about God, Elvis, and his faith in gospel and his gospel performances. If I can get it out. I think my teeth have slipped a little bit. So without further ado, we're going to say hello to Lee. Lee, hi, can you hear me?
I can, Steve. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, brilliant. I've got to say, actually, you're looking very dapper there. I nearly feel underdressed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I know what's going to happen. Everybody's going to
go.
Yes. Well, everybody's going to be saying now, Steve, why aren't you wearing a waistcoat and a tie? So that's why I'm underdressed. So, yeah, Lee, just say why you actually contacted me and what you wanted to discuss about Elvis.
Well, Steve, as you rightly said, this month has been the release of the His Hand in Mine from the FTD label, and it just seemed it came to mind an appropriate time to discuss what is a very important aspect of Elvis's life, his faith and his gospel performances. And indeed, it seems it's an area which is often unknown, especially by non-fans. It's an example tonight. When I was set to come on, I said to a friend of mine, I'm coming on, of course. And they asked what I was to speak of, and I said the gospel. And they weren't even aware that Elvis sang gospel. And it's such a treasure trove of his performances. And I felt that with your permission, that it was an appropriate time to discuss maybe his life and his faith.
Well, I mean, I agree on 100% with what you're saying. I mean, I've actually written down here against your notes, it's a neglected area of his life and career. I mean,
Yes.
if you sort of said to the average Joe on the street or the sort of very casual Elvis fan, they might be able to just say, "Oh yeah, he sang "Crying in the Chapel." But
Yeah.
after that, what else would they say? They probably couldn't name any more
No,
of his
no.
gospel songs.
And
So yeah, neglected.
it's also an aspect of people who attend church as well. They're not always, unless you're an Elvis fan, it seems that you're not aware necessarily of how much his faith meant to him, and indeed how many performances he actually did of gospel in his career. Um, and that's why I thought maybe the public perception first, what we know of him, of the fans know of Elvis's gospel performances, might be a nice place to start. What do you think?
Yeah, well, let's. I mean, Lee, just for the listeners, Lee sent me some notes during the week, and we've broken it down into sort of three areas, if you like. And the first one is Elvis's public faith, his gospel performances. So, as you say, if you want to start with there, and there's actually a psalm, isn't there, that you can quote about that?
Yes, I thought it was an appropriate one. Psalm 71, verse 3. My lips shall greatly rejoice when I sing unto thee. My lips shall greatly rejoice when I sing unto thee. And I think that's very applicable to Elvis Presley. I don't know what you think, Steve, and your listeners, but it seems to me that when Elvis sang gospel, this was when he personally was at his most content and his most happy and most joyful. And his lips greatly rejoiced to sing unto God. As we shall see, first and foremost, through his professional performances, but indeed in his private ones. It seemed that was the area of music that he enjoyed the most and really felt the most. That's my opinion anyway. So,
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously seen Elvis on tour, the
yes,
film.
yes,
You know what I'm going to say, don't you? When he asked the J.D. Sumner and the Stamps to sing "Sweet Sweet Spirit," I think it's called, isn't it?
yes, that's correct. Yeah,
And the camera haunts him almost just close up, head and shoulders.
yeah.
And when you can see in his face and the joy it brings him, you know.
Exactly, exactly.
So this is sort of, we can just see that the peace that it brought him. That's always struck. That to me actually is a highlight of that film, Elvis on tour, when he asked JD to sing that.
It's a touching moment, and indeed, as touch on maybe in a bit, he does actually say it brings him peace. You hear him when he's jamming later behind the scenes with the Jordanaires and Charlie Hodge at the piano. He says that's when he's most peaceful. It brings him peace. But indeed, as throughout his career, and I think because we know the three albums, of course, His Hand in Mine, How Great Thou Art, and He Touched Me. The fact are the studio ones, of course, as we know. But I think it's fair to say it covered the whole gamut of his career, actually. And especially when I thought about us talking today, I considered right the way from the 50s all the way through. Certainly, when you consider 1957, Elvis broke onto scene 56, as all your viewers will know. And around the world, here is this rock and roll legend. And then he has his performance on the Ed Sullivan Show, which I believe was his last performance in January of 57.
Was, yeah.
He sang his hits, the latest hits, and there's a Hungarian relief to be done, I believe. And Ed Sullivan then introduces Elvis, who then sings, what does he sing? Peace in the Valley. Peace in the Valley. And here is a man who's hit the scene as a rock and roll rebel, hips swiveling, legs shaking. And he sings the most humble of songs of Peace in the Valley, because that's what the image he wanted to set at that time. We know he goes from there, 57, he has an EP where he releases 4 singles on that. His Peace in the Valley, It Is No Secret What God Can Do, I Believe, and Take My Hand, Precious Lord. Again, the rock and roll legend is suddenly, in the height of his, and this is a young man as well, of course, he's doing gospel already. We see him go into the army, of course, and he comes out of the army. Once again, you think, here he goes. This is it. He wants to set himself back on the scene. Well, of course he does. Elvis is Back, a fantastic album, which I'm sure you enjoy and your viewers enjoy. But as we come right into October, the very part of what we're covering, His Hand in Mine, a gospel album again. full straight away. He's back into it. 1960. It's pervaded through his career. Certainly, as I think as you've alluded to, and I saw it last night. I don't know if anybody, because I'm in Britain, of course. There was a documentary about the Beatles last night, and how they exploded onto the scene, of course, in the '63 through. And you would think that Elvis would come back with a rock and roll song, maybe. But what did he get to #1 in Britain with? Crying in the Chapel, 1965. Mm-hmm. Takes the Beatles off the top, I believe, in the midst of their furore, with a gospel song. It's and of course, this is an interesting aspect that I'd forgotten about, Steve. I know you do a quiz of the week, of course, and but there's his movies. There are 3 movies where there are a spiritual song in each one. Now, I have no prize for your viewers to put in, so if they can think of the 3 movies, maybe we can say at the end. I'm not going to put you on the spot either, because I had to think. There are 3 movies. Where does anybody sing gospel in their movies? They're obviously a rock and roll legend, but there are 3 movies, and there are a spiritual song in each. It just shows, even in the movies, you know. But of course, we come to the '68 special, his comeback special, as the public would say, but for us who are fans, of course, he was always there. '68 special. What's in the middle of it? The gospel section. Once again, Saved, and all the girls and the dancers are going around a gospel section again. And of course, I think we know it most. Well, let's not forget, we had this How Great Thou Art in 1967 as well. 70s, as your viewers will know, of course. There are more commercial albums, but even on the commercial album, Steve, the Today album, correct me if I'm wrong, forgive me with my dates as well. The Today album, Put Your Hand in the Hand, Miracle of the Rosary. The Love Letters album, Only Believe. There seems to be gospel songs every aspect. And of course, the He Touched Me album, 1972. And of course, as you've alluded to as well, when he goes back on tour, the live aspect, he would stop his own show virtually and ask the audience to listen to the performance of the Stamps. Sweet, Sweet Spirit, Why Me, Lord? And he was at his most content at that point, I think. To conclude his career, if we can at that point, there are 3 Grammys which Elvis won. I believe he was nominated. Your fans will undoubtedly, your subscribers will tell me if I'm wrong. He was nominated 14, I believe. 14. He won 3, all for sacred performances. All for sacred performances. How Great Thou Art in 1967. He Touched Me 72, and the live performance, which is a fantastic performance of How Great Thou Art. 3 Grammy Awards for sacred performances. Just that smaller aspect of it, just that overview of his career, we see from 50s to 70s. It was there all the way through, a constant in his life. And
yeah, and let's move on now to Elvis's private faith, the effect it had on his life.
Yes.
Again, we can start with Matthew 23:12. Is that right?
That's
I think
correct.
I've got it right here.
That's correct.
What does that say? What does that say?
Well, the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 23, verse 12 says, "Whoever shall exalt himself shall be humbled, and he that humble himself shall be exalted." And I think what it shows, that once again, it's attributable to Elvis. Those who put themselves up on a pedestal will soon be brought down. Elvis never did that. You and I and the fans placed him on the pedestal, as high as he is, as the greatest of all time, in my opinion, of recording artists. But Elvis never put himself there. You know, and that stems from the man he is, and this is why we talk of his public faith now. He attendance from an early age, at the age of 2, to the Pentecostal First Assembly Church in Chapello. I had the privilege of visiting Graceland in 2004, and there was the chapel behind the shack, which was his house. I know you've been there. Was that there when you were there, Steve?
Yes, it was. Yes. Yeah.
So peaceful, so serene when you went in there. Elvis's music is playing, and I stayed there for a while, you know. And indeed, my Bible, I have a bookmark from there. It's actually from there. If I may just show you your viewers, I don't know if you can pick that up.
I might. Do you know what? Do you know what I might do? I might just put it on full screen. Hang on a second.
Okay.
I think I can probably do that. I think anyway.
It's an abundant living bookmark, and it states a collection of. I'm sorry if I can't, but yes, that's what.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's abundant living from Tupelo, and it says he made his mark. And the first thing it says is pray. It's the greatest power on earth, and this was from the church, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, his faith. His faith. Well, of course we know his parents went to attended church. Gladys, I believe, said that Elvis slipped off her lap as a 2-year-old and would run to the front and listen to the gospel performances.
I was going to mention that. You've actually beat me to it. I was going to mention that. Yeah, no, not at all. But yeah, he slipped off her knee, joined the choir. He could hold a tune. He didn't know many of the words, I believe, because he was tiny. But yeah. So that's great. Yes, we're on the same wavelength.
Well, this is it. Of course, and being a teenager, of course, I believe in Memphis, and certainly your subscribers from America could confirm this, that there are gospel conventions. And he would listen to people like the Blackwood brothers, who J.D. Sumner was with at the time. And J.D. actually knew him as a teenager, because Elvis would always be at these sing-along conventions. He would listen to the Statesman Quartet, and this was a mainstay of Elvis's life, and certainly in the South of America, I believe. But the effect, of course, of his belief is that it was within him, wasn't it? You know. And I listened to an interview by him just yesterday from 1962. And the interviewer asks him, "What sort of person do you think you are, Elvis?" He said, "I'm just a human being. I try and be, kind to people. I'm not supernatural. I'm blood and flesh and blood, and I try and treat people as I would like to be treated, which is a tenet of the Bible. To be good, to love other people." And of course, you and other Elvis fans know of Elvis's generosity, his kindness to other people, the amount of benefit performances he placed on the March of Dimes in the 50s for polio, the benefit performance in 1961 for Pearl Harbor, Aloha from Hawaii, his maybe greatest achievement. And it was a benefit concert, wasn't it? For the Q Lee Cancer Fund. And we hear him say, don't we? They hope to raise 25,000 tonight, but with the thanks of the fans, £75,000. And I looked that up, Stephen. Today's money, that's $500,000. $500,000 for this wonderful, and of course we have many other things, his personal gifts and cars and so forth and so on. But the aspect of it, I think the most important thing of his faith to Elvis is humility, and that's why I made that quote: "He who humbles himself will be exalted." At the time when Elvis was the king of rock and roll, there is an anecdote, and we see it on YouTube, actually. No dismissive of Jerry Lee Lewis at this point, but you hear him say that he had a stand-up fight with Chuck Berry to determine who was king of rock and roll. And Chuck Berry won the fight by all accounts, but that's of no consequence. But they were fighting to see who was the king of rock and roll. But Elvis never attributed this word king to himself, did he? You know, there's a wonderful aspect. At his crowning moment, when we're led to believe 1.5 billion people watched him live, and I'm getting a bit nervous just talking to you, never mind 1.5 billion, you know. So there's 1.5 billion people watching this one man, the most famous man on the planet at that point, and he's handed your subscribers will know, the people know, he's handed a crown, and he doesn't put it on his head, he carries it. He later is asked, why didn't you put it on Elvis? He said, "There's only one king, and that's Jesus Christ." Yeah. And indeed, if anybody's listening and think, well, that might, we never heard him, Lee. And on the YouTube, Steve, in 1974, the year after, I'm led to believe that at a concert, and you forgive me, your subscribers will forgive me, I can't recall what it was on, but you can find it on YouTube. A collection of girls unravel a thing that's saying, Elvis, must be saying, "Elvis, you are the king." And you hear him say, Thank you, dear. I'm not the king. Jesus Christ is king. This is the man who is probably the most famous man on the planet, and humbles himself and says, I'm not the king, but Jesus Christ is. That's humility. That is a man who doesn't put himself above anybody else. And that's a tenet of his Christianity. We see his faith go through his life. But of course, right to his last hours, we're led to believe that as Elvis went from Ginger Alden to the bathroom before he passed away, the last book we were told he's reading is The Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus. He's reading about Jesus right till his last moments. It was with him all his days. He felt it sincerely. He prayed often. We hear his backing singers, J.D., said how religious he was. And it just shows to the man, doesn't it, that this is the man who was the most famous man on the planet and humbled himself, didn't see himself any more than anybody else, and proclaimed Jesus through his performances. I think it's wonderful. It's a wonderful aspect of him and the man he is. I really do.
Yes. The third and final area we want to cover is the continued influence of his gospel performances since his passing. And we can start with another psalm. Is it?
It's from the Gospel of Matthew.
Verse, yeah. Which one is that?
It's from Jesus Christ himself, as prior to his ascension to heaven. He's been resurrected, and he speaks to his disciples, and it's Matthew 28, verse 19. And Christ says to the disciples, the last words he says to them is, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations." In other words, preach the gospel. Tell people of the good news of Christ. And I think that's why I sort of subheaded this with you, Steve, as Elvis the Preacher. Because as Christians on earth, that is our commission, to tell of our belief in Jesus Christ, how he affects our lives. It's the very least we can do. And Elvis was a great servant of God. He was a preacher because, yes, I'm a preacher, Steve, and I do it by the spoken word. My singing voice is not the best. Let me tell you that. But there's various ways you can put the gospel out there. It can be by the written word. It can be spoken, or indeed it can be sung. And Elvis Presley passed the word out by the means of singing the gospel to millions of people. Not only his fans, but anyone can hear him if they wish to. And what greater servant can you be than that, Steve? It's the objective, it's the commission of Christ. Just put the word out there. Tell them who Christ is. And Elvis does this to millions of people by means of his songs. And for me, Steve, on a personal note, my family and I, we weren't churchgoers. I'm a preacher now, but we weren't churchgoers. We were always believers, just to say a humble prayer and to believe in Christ. So my church was Elvis gospel songs. Those were the songs, those were the hymns, those were the songs I grew up on. And it inspires you with the faith, it's just wonderful. Those are the gospel songs I grew up on and inspired me inside, You hear once, of course, the $1 Million Quartet. And these young men, there's Elvis, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Johnny Cash. And though you're subscribed, I'm sure you've heard that album. I'm sure you have the album, The $1 Million Quartet. And these are young men at the pinnacle, young men. And they're singing, "Blessed Jesus, hold my hand," "Just a Little Talk with Jesus," all the things they grew up on. And you hear it once, as Elvis is singing, you hear Jerry Lee go soul stirring. And that's what the music is. It's soul stirring. And that's where you see it touched Elvis and, of course, all of us as fans. Elvis Presley was a blessing from God. He was a blessing from God. I believe on his headstone it says, forgive me if I don't wish to misquote it, but he was a precious gift from God. With his God-given talent, he entertained the world. He was a gift from God. And by the means of Elvis as a vessel, the word of Christ was put out and continues to be put out today. And look at all the entertainment Elvis has brought to the world. to billions of people. And this man leads the full-on Christian life by his performances, his preaching of Jesus, and he's lived the way he lived. And he continues to be an inspiration. I indeed use his lyrics as some of my sermons at sometimes. I've inculcated some of his songs into sermons as well, and it's been very well received,
Good.
and surprisingly received. So it's just a pleasure to be able to share some time with you and your subscribers here to talk about Elvis and this aspect of his life that may not be.
I must admit that I found it fascinating. I really have, and very informative. Just a few things I was thinking of there when you were talking. I mean, I think as Elvis got older, his rock and roll music and other stuff like that became almost secondary. And when he wasn't performing on stage, he was, singing to family and friends. And when when they were up in the hotel room, when they were in Vegas, they'd only ever sing gospel and religious songs. They'd never sing, Hound Dog and all these other things, that he'd been singing for so long. So that's what I feel anyway.
He was there for hours by all accounts. I've heard some of the stamps say we were tired and wanted to go, but it sing till the morning light came up. And the home recordings you hear him record, we have such things as Nearer My God to Thee, which wasn't recorded, but you hear him when people have happened to put a tape recorder on. And I'm sure all your subscribers have heard these. Even in the army, with Eddie Fidel's house, you hear him singing
Yes.
I Ask the Lord, which is a beautiful song. And of course, he met with people like Mahalia Jackson, didn't he? Who was regarded as the Queen of Gospel. And you're absolutely right. In his private moments, Steve, I think this is where we see Elvis singing what he wants to sing. It's an aspect of his life that was a core for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, he said on Elvis Song tour that he put his mind at rest. I think you said that earlier. He'd put his mind at rest.
This is it. I think it just shows something. When you come away from the live performances, you've just said, Steve, when you step away from the audience who wished it's what you sing at home, isn't it? That's really your music. And it was gospel all the way, by all accounts. I saw I believe it's on YouTube as well. I have VHS. I'm behind the times. 2 VHS cassettes, and he touched me. The Elvis Gospel documentary. It is on YouTube, and it's fantastic. The Imperials are on there, and the Jordanaires, of course, which were the gospel group. He just surrounded himself by gospel, and you don't sing it unless you feel it, Steve. And all I'd say to your subscribers today, I know the great Elvis fans who maybe haven't touched the gospel for a while, or might not be believers, have another little listen, have another go. It touches your soul. It really does. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to come on and speak with you, Stephen. To speak.
Not at all. I mean, when I started this, when I started the YouTube channel, and then I did the podcast channel as well, what I said was it will cover all aspects of Elvis's life and career. There's nothing that I'm not close to discussing anything at all. And this is just one of the things that, as I said at the start, I think it's a neglected area of his life and career. Another thing that actually just popped into my head as well is when he went into the recording studio to do recording sessions, he always warmed up with the vocal group sitting around the piano. He would play the piano and he would be playing religious and gospel. Again, it was his way of just calming himself and putting his mind at ease before the task ahead. That's another thing. That's another thing I think unless you've got anything to add, Lee, we can kind of.
Just for your subscribers, because I asked them a question. Did you know the answer, Steve? I'm pretty sure you know the answer to the movie.
Yeah, there was obviously change of habit. Okay, was one. Was the other one The Trouble with Girls?
It was.
And the third one. Yeah, that's right. And the third one, I'm stumped on. I must admit, my mind's gone blank.
Maybe something for your subscribers. It was Easy Come, Easy Go. Sing You Children. It speaks of Jonah in the belly of the whale. Jonah had a plan. He knew it wouldn't fail.
Right.
It's amazing, isn't it? We forget these things, that's there. But may I just
Yeah.
say before I go, Steve, I just want to say thank you very much indeed for having me on your channel. I'm sure I speak for the rest of your subscribers when I say it's a fantastic channel. As an Elvis fan, I speak now. It's entertaining, extremely informative, and you perpetuating the legacy of Elvis in the most respectful way. And so, God bless you and your channel, Stephen. God bless all your subscribers.
Well, that's very, very, very kind. I mean, that's what I'm setting out to do, just to perpetuate Elvis's life and memory and so forth. I'm gonna actually ask you a question, and it might be difficult to answer, but I'll give you my answer first of all. My favorite songs from the Is Hand in Mine session. Okay, my favorite song out of that session is Milky White Way.
Yes.
Okay, the How Great Thou Art sessions is Stand By Me, and then I John is the third one. So those are the three from those particular albums.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've got any favorite one from His Hand in Mine.
His Hand in Mine is my favorite album of all time, and it's In My Father's House Are Many Mansions. It's actually taken directly from the Gospel according to John, chapter 14, 1-3. Actually from there. In my Father's House Are Many Mansions. How Great Thou Art is Where No One Stands Alone. I think that's a wonderful song.
It's 20 hours.
And also on He Touched Me album, yes, I think I John. And once again, quoted from the Bible itself. So, yeah, I agree with you on that one, Steve. But they're all great. As all we know this. They can swap
exactly. Yeah, I agree. They are all great, but it's just those three just really hit home with me. The Stand By Me, when he's sort of saying, when the world is tossing me like a ship on the sea, and stand by me and all that, it just really hits home. And Milky White Way, again, it kind of goes through three phases, doesn't it? And he says he's going to see his mother. That would have hit home with him in Milky White Way, wouldn't it? Because obviously by then his mother had passed away. Absolutely. So yeah, it kind of, the hairs on the back of the neck there always stand up when he sings that line about his mother,
Of course.
Okay, Lee, it really has. I can not emphasize this enough. It really has been great, and it was it's very kind of you to come on and do this. And actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you back again maybe, and we can talk a little bit more about Elvis and his faith. All right.
Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, stay safe. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe. So that was Lee Wood, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that. He spoke very eloquently about this subject, as he probably would, with him being a preacher. And I speaking for myself, I found it very, very enlightening, very, very enlightening. Okay, so where are we now? We are going to do the fan quiz of the month, fan of the month quiz. February 28th, the last day of the month, which means that this is the final week as well. And also, don't go away after the quiz, because I'm going to discuss the Elvis Song of the Week. And basically what I do there is I pick a song that's been running through my head all week, an Elvis song, one that I've been playing on repeat, and just get everybody's sort of, opinion on what they think of the song that I've picked. And it actually, what it'll be is it'll probably be my favorite song of the week, not just the Elvis song of the week that I picked out of the air, but the one that I think is my favorite. And then of course I wake up the next day and it's another one that is my favorite. So let's have a look. Don't forget your super chats if you want to highlight a comment so that I can read it out. Please come back, Lee, says Rob Jones. Juan says, lovely man. Great interview. Thank you very much. It won't be any day now, Rob, this week. The song of the week is from another year than 1969. Right. So without further ado, there's Banjo Paul. I hope Lou Dane is still here, because Lou Dane could sweep the board like she did last week. And So it's 6 questions as always, and what it is the first correct answer I see this side, okay, is the winner of that question. All right. Now I know there's been some sort of what's the word? Not discrepancies, sort of, and people thinking that they've got the answer before the other person, but it basically is the first one I see correct. And I know that sometimes the feed actually doesn't tie up. Right. So the first question is, what was Elvis's character's name in the movie Speedway? What was Elvis's character's name in the movie Speedway? And I'm going to take a drink while I'm waiting. Although that being said, Lee did most of the speaking there the last half hour or so. Okay, Steve Grayson and Vincenzo got that right. Vincenzo was the first one. I'll tell you how it went. It went, Roseanne Dolby, Rob Jones, Don, Nancy. Okay. And of course, it was Steve Grayson. Hey, there's Ruth, my friend Ruth. Ruth was actually the winner of the very, very first Fan of the Month quiz, and she received her prize that was donated very kindly by Arkansas Dave. She got that during the week, and she sent me photographs. Yeah, Juan says, well done, Vincenzo. And I agree, well done. Okay, right. Question 2. Who was Elvis's female co-star in that movie? There you go. We're turning it into a bit of a theme here. So who was Elvis's female co-star in Speedway? And why? Yeah, it was Nancy Sinatra. Yeah, a lot of people got that right. Yeah. Okay. The next question, who was the main male co-star in Speedway? Okay, so we've got Nancy Sinatra as the female. And now we've got, who was the male co-star? Still a few coming through saying Nancy Sinatra. That's just because of the delay on the line. Bill Bixby, Christopher Tyler. No, hang on. I beg your pardon. Whoa. Let me just back up a little bit here. Who was the first person to say Bill Bixby? Okay. Roseanne Dolby. That was close. Sorry, Roseanne, I nearly missed you. Yeah, David Banner is right, Paul. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it was Roseanne. Yeah. I nearly got that one wrong. I've got to be so careful because a whole pile of them come in at one time, sometimes 10 or 12 comments at the same time. But it was Roseanne Dalby. Okay. A lot of people getting it right. Yeah, Lou Dane. Yeah, yeah. Somebody's typed reestablish there has put Bixby, but the thing is, I need Bill Bixby. I need the whole. I need the Christian name and the surname. Here we go. Who directed the movie Speedway? It wasn't Bill Bixby. Sandy is saying easier questions. What, these are easier questions or you want easier questions? I kind of think they're kind of medium, in between hard and simple. Rob Jones, Norman Torog. Yep. Yeah, Sandy says she wants easier questions. Okay, I'll tell you what, right? Next month, I'll throw in a couple of easy ones, easy weeks. Good old Norm is right. Yeah. Okay, well, that for anybody that's saying they don't know a lot about movies or the Elvis's movies, or they're a little weak on them, that's the last movie question tonight. The final two have nothing to do with movies whatsoever. So people will be breathing a sigh of relief now. Okay. Right. Question 5. How old was Priscilla when she married Elvis? How old was Priscilla when she married Elvis? That's a good one. I think that's a good one. And it's a quick one as well. You don't have to type a big long sentence. You just have to type 2 numbers. Okay. And that is unbelievable how many people came through all at one time. So I'm going to have to scroll back and see that the first one that got 21 was Anna. Anna Tasky. She just said it's Anna. She said, if you just want to say Anna, that's fine. Okay. Wow. About 20 people all at one go said 21. But the very, very first one that appears on my screen, it's Anna. Okay, well done. She was 21. She was 23 days short of her 22nd birthday, because obviously her birthday is the middle of May, 23rd of May, I think. Okay. Right. Question, the final question of the month. Okay. What type of stone wall is the Graceland wall constructed with? So what type of stone is the wall at Graceland constructed with? Okay, it's a specific type of stone. And if anybody knows that, if they type it really, really quick. Anna was fastest finger first. Yes, she was. Yeah, it is hard stone. Yeah. Okay, some people are saying sandstone and limestone. Marble, no, it's not marble. It's 3 words. Now I'm surprised at this. Nobody yet has got it right. Oh, sorry, JC22. Just as I said that, JC22. It is. It's Alabama fieldstone. JC22. There you go. Yeah. A specific type of stone, apparently. Yeah, a lot of people are getting it right now. Ludane, yeah, Alabama fieldstone, yeah. But that did trip a few people up. Tennessee stone, sandstone, granite. Sandstone, I think, would be too soft, wouldn't it? Yeah. Ludane, yeah. Vincenzo says he couldn't remember. Let me tell you that I promised last week that when I did the Wednesday live stream, I promised you that I would tell you who I was interviewing. And unfortunately, I'm glad I didn't tell you because unfortunately, the person I was supposed to interview, something cropped up and we've had to reschedule for Tuesday. So what I'm going to do is, after I have interviewed that person, and it's somebody very close to Elvis, I will come on probably on Wednesday and tell you who it is. So anybody watching now, if they want to join me again on Wednesday evening, maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock ish, and we can I can divulge who that person is. I almost said their name then. Hi Anna from Sweden. Memphis Mud Pack, yeah. Okay. Did Ruth get it first? A lot of people are saying Ruth got it first, but I'm gonna scroll back down again and see. So we've got 21, 21, 21, 21, 21, 21. These are the people saying how old Elvis was. Sorry, how old Priscilla was. 21, 21. Yeah, I must admit, I can see the first person that appears on the list is Granite, Ludane. Did anybody say before Ludane? I'll have to look on replay when later on, but Ruth Daniel is coming up there as being before Anna. Let me just have a look. I think it might be Ruth. Yeah. So I might just change that. Sorry, Anna. Sorry about that. Thanks, guys, for just confirming that for me. Although Sandy says it was Anna, I might just leave it at Anna. But what I will do is I'll leave it at. Yeah, I've got Anna for Anna for 21 and JC 22 for the Alabama Fieldstone. But what I will do is I will look back on replay. Something else I wanted to mention is the song, the Elvis song of the week. Okay, this is the song that's been running through my head for 3 or 4 days. When I've been listening to Elvis, I've just been putting this song on, loop and just listening to it over and over and over again because I think his voice is just superb on this song. And what I am going to say is it was recorded at a 3-day recording session at the RCA studios in Hollywood in March 1975. The song was recorded on the last day of the 3 days, which was March the 12th, 1975. And he only recorded this song and one more song, which was Pieces of My Life. And my song of the week is Bringing It Back. Okay, so if you're not familiar with that, it's on the Elvis Today album, and I just love his voice on it. Now, if I was to say to anybody, go and listen to it, I would actually say listen to the undubbed version of it. The version they used for the master was take 4. He only did 4 takes of it, and there is an undubbed version of it going around before Felton overdubbed some. I think he just overdubbed a little bit of instruments, and he also overdubbed more vocals as well. And I actually think that the vocals actually drown out Elvis's vocal in some parts of the recording. So what I would say is, if you do search out Bringing It Back, listen to the undubbed one. I like the undubbed version of Bringing It Back. So that's something I'm going to do every week. I'm going to tell you what song I've been listening to the most during the week, which one I've put on loop and listened to over and over and over again. And this week, it happens to be Bringing It Back. I just love it. I really do. And I'm going to try and pick out what I think is more obscure ones. I mean, as I said earlier on at the top of the show, it's not going to be songs like All Shook Up and Suspicious Minds. It's going to be those ones that are probably a little bit more obscure. Nancy says she's been listening to It's Easy for You all week. Another great song. Yes, Dave, there is a prize for February, and the prize is going to be donated by you. You might see Chris, our art student, on the chat some weeks. She's not on here tonight, and the reason she's not on here tonight is she's working furiously to finish the drawing as the prize for February. So when I sit down later on, and probably tomorrow, and I just double check to see who got the answers correct, because I always like to double check and look at it on playback, because when it's going so fast, sometimes I might not see the first person. So what I do is I normally watch this on playback to make sure that I got it right. It's on the Today album is correct. Yes, that's right. And a great album, actually. Today is a good album. And I always say that Elvis Today was his last real studio album. I know people are saying, well, what about the From Elvis Presley Boulevard and Moody Blue? But they weren't really what I would consider a professional studio. They were home recordings on professional equipment. So the last time Elvis actually went into a fully fledged recording studio was March 1975. Okay, so let's see a few comments here now. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and click the bell for notifications, because the more people that actually subscribe to a channel like this, okay, the more they actually YouTube actually recommend the videos, so more people see these videos, and ergo, Elvis is seen more. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, because it does help. Don't do it for me, do it for Elvis. Yeah, that's right, Paul. Yeah, they were done at Graceland. So I don't really, okay, I know they are studio recordings, but they're not professional studio recordings. They were done on professional studio equipment. Now that's quite interesting, Sandy. It's just something I wanted to actually cover. She says she subscribed, but she doesn't get notifications. Well, I know that if you subscribe and click the bell, there's one other thing you have to do, and you actually have to, especially if you use your phone for notifications for YouTube, you actually have to go into settings on your phone, go into apps, I think it is, and then find the app, in this case YouTube, and then select it and make sure that the notifications are toggled on for this application. So in other words, you might be getting notifications for other apps on your phone, but you might not have turned on the notifications for that particular app. So that sometimes happens. Let's see. Somebody is saying no sound. Okay, well, I can honestly say that there is sound, because people have been answering me all evening. You might have me on mute. Okay. Oh, yeah. Something else has just reminded me as well. Somebody last week asked about Bob Lanning. Bob Lanning is a drummer, and he actually filled in for Ronnie Tutt during Elvis's second season at Las Vegas, which was obviously February 1970. If you listen to the On Stage album, you can actually tell that the drummer is different. Just Bob's drumming is completely different to Ronnie Tutt's. I think the reason why Ronnie wasn't playing on the January and February season was because he couldn't. No, first of all, Colonel Parker didn't give Ronnie the heads up that there was going to be a second season. And secondly, I don't think they could agree on a fee, pay. So that's the reason why Bob was playing on the January and February season. Now, some people said, was Bob sacked? No, I don't think he was sacked. Elvis was quite happy with Bob's performance and drumming. In fact, when he introduces everybody, he actually says Bob Lanning doing a fantastic job. So he was happy with Bob. But I think I just have it in my head somewhere, and I think it's in Peter Guralnick's second volume, that he just did prefer Ronnie's drumming to Bob's, even though he admitted that Bob was a very, very good drummer and he was doing a fantastic job. I think he just preferred Ronnie. So that's the answer to that question. That somebody says, do they know why Bob was sacked? I don't think he was sacked or fired. I just think it was there was a misunderstanding between Ronnie Tutt and the Colonel, and also Ronnie didn't know that he was going to be required in January. So it was two things, and ultimately the reason why Ronnie came back in August was because those things had been sorted out. And Elvis did probably prefer Ronnie's drumming over Bob's, even though he said that Bob was a good drummer too. Where did Bob go? He's still around, but I don't think he sort of interacts on social media or things like that, because I've been looking for Bob actually to see if I could get him on the show, because I'd love to speak to Bob. I'd love to speak to Ronnie Tutt as well. People like that I'd just love to speak to. Another one I was wanting to speak to was Duke Bardwell, who was filled in when Jerry Sheff went away for a short time. But Larry London was a good drummer. That's right. Actually, Larry London played on the very, very last show that Elvis did, didn't he? Ronnie Tutt had to leave on a personal matter, I think. So in Indianapolis and Cincinnati, I think it's Larry London who played. Very powerful drummer. Ronnie said it was like playing for a stripper. Yeah, he took his cues from the back of Elvis, I believe. Yeah. I would imagine Ronnie Tutt is in his 70s now. Norman Putnam is still alive, yeah. As far as I know, yes. Thanks, Dean. That's very, very kind of you. I saw Wood, and I wondered, were you related to him? And he's your brother. Yeah, well, he did a fantastic job tonight. He really did. Yes, Larry London played on the last concert. He's like the animal of the Muppets. That's right. I love the Muppets. I loved Animal. So great. Thanks very much for joining me again. I must admit, I enjoyed every single minute of it. I very, very much enjoyed Lee's input about Elvis's faith and gospel performances. I enjoyed the fan of the month quiz, and as I say, I do promise that I will check to see that I've got the people that got the answer first correct on my sheet before I go any further. If I do have time on Wednesday, I'll let you know on Wednesday who the winner was of the fan of the month. And don't forget, we're going to do fan of the year as well. And the first fan of the year we're going to do on the 15th of August, which is Elvis week. And as I said, if it all works out and I interview the person on Tuesday, I'll come on Wednesday and I'll let you know who it was as well. And until then, as I always say, please take care. Thank you very, very much for joining me. It's much appreciated. And all being well, I'll see you on Wednesday. Take care of yourselves.